So this is just when you talked about the water quality areas, town of Southampton, redrew the maps, thank you very much. And if you see all these pink areas, those are all the areas that are available for the town rebate of the system. So the grants work a little different. The county grant only pays for the install, and they pay the installer directly. The state grant, which is managed by the county, they'll pay for some of the engineering fees, and they'll pay for additional costs on the system. The town rebate will cover a little bit more expenses. They're a little bit some restoration costs. So if some of your yard gets ripped up, they'll pay for some restoration costs up to the grant's amount. That doesn't mean they're going to give you something new. So if you think you're going to get a total re-landscaping done because of this and you have this amount of grants, no. I encourage people, take pictures of your property before, because they'll pay for the restoration to what you had, not what you really want. So if you didn't have a walkway and now you want to add a walkway, they're not going to pay for that walkway. But if you had to take bushes out to have your system installed, they'll pay to reinstall the bushes.
Even if it's under the driveway, right?
It can go under the driveway as well. Systems that go under the driveway, they need to be road rated, so there's certain systems that are more, the engineer would recommend certain systems that are equivalent, they're good for your driveway, that you can drive cars on as well. So there's a lot of steps for your upgrade. I always encourage people, first step, submit the applications. There is a waiting period, and so I always encourage you to get the applications in as quickly as possible. Your engineer to do the design, they're usually the ones that are selecting the system that's right for your property. There are certain systems, if you have a small lot, there are certain systems that have a smaller footprint, and those will be better for your property. You select an installer from the county's approved list. If you do not use an installer from the approved list, you will not get the county grant. So it's important. And also the county grant, you have to get the grant approved before you do the installation. They won't reimburse you and say, well, I got to get the system installed and I thought I could just reimburse. They won't do that. The state will allow reimbursement after installation, and the town rebate will come after the installation. So sometimes people can move forward with just the state grant and the town grant. And so what happens is they install your system, county comes out and inspects it, and then you would submit your reimbursement for those other programs. So what can you expect from an install? Well, they need to excavate your property, and if anybody's seen an install done, it kind of looks scary because they have big piles of dirt. But this is an example of a tank that's a FujiClean tank that's going in. You still need to have a leaching structure. Sometimes if your system's not old, they can reuse the existing leaching structure. A lot of engineers like to specify a new one. Well, you put in a new system and just put a new septic, a new leaching structure in. But you can reuse it, and I've had homeowners reuse it. But one thing I want to talk about is on the disruption to your property. The actual install is the quickest part of the whole process. It takes about a day, maybe 2 days tops. That's it. So, yes, there's a disruption to your property, but the environmental benefits that you're getting from this are lasting. So there are some visual impacts of the system. The system has to be serviced. There's a service agreement that needs to you need to have with your system. Your install cost will come with a 3-year service agreement. They come out twice a year. They inspect your system. So they need to have access to the covers. So you'll see, this is some plastic manhole covers. They're probably about 20, 24 inches in diameter. The Renco system's not very popular, and I can see why, because it's got a big square tank. But most of them are these little plastic covers, and if it was in your driveway, it would be probably a cast iron manhole in there. So there are ways to do some creative screening on here and you know, try to camouflage what you have. So here's just some examples of how people incorporated it into their landscaping. This is my favorite. This was a house in Georgia Capon. She actually had her landscaper with these big slabs. I don't know what kind of stone it is, but they had them cut out these covers that they were able to take up. So there's different ways. I've heard of homeowners taking cut whiskey barrels and putting them over the covers, and they got planters in it. So there's different ways that can be done. So there is a control panel, because I mentioned about an aerator to give a little bubbler to give air to the system, and they can be remotely located. They don't have to sit next to the system. So you can kind of hide them. Here is one that was in the Lake Agawam area. So we had them just put the control panel on the side of the house, and we tucked in this blower here right by her other utilities with the bushes. And you can actually put a bush in front of here if you want. The requirement, it could usually be up to 30, 50 feet away from it, but there is a requirement that you need a line of sight from the system to the control panel. So there's limitations to it. Here's one. This was that one that was in Georgia Capon. It was in amongst ferns, so it really disguised it. And here's another one that's just on the side of a garage.
Can you put it on the other side of the fence?
They need to have line of sight of the system.
So I guess you can't then.
If you had an enclosure around
The
it,
fence and the unit behind the fence, I can't see it. It's a question. I don't know the
no,
answer.
I could see where if you wanted to put it behind like a piece of lattice or whatever, so long as
Regular 6-foot vinyl fence.
yeah, so long as they have line of sight is the requirement that the county requires on those. So after your install, the county introduces the startup. You submit the documentations to the town for your rebate. I mentioned about the service agreement, the initial installation, and then the homeowner after that, after those 3 years are up, is required to get a service agreement. You can get it either with the existing service provider, or you could select a different service provider. The average cost of the annual service is around $500. I know the county is looking into how they can fund the ongoing maintenance. They know that the system's going to be coming off of, you know, a lot of systems are coming off that initial 3 years, so they're looking to see how can we cover those costs on it. I don't have enough to give you information on the details of that program until it's fully vetted. So ongoing maintenance costs, annual operation and maintenance service agreement is around $500. The pumping costs, they're usually around every 3 years. You'd have to get your pumped out, but they're not pumping out your whole system. They're just pumping out a portion of it. Some of these systems require the bacteria to be in there, and you don't want to take all that bacteria out because that's what's doing the work for you. But it really depends on you and what your usage is at your house. So these systems, they don't like to be hooked up to garbage disposals. You know, the grinders in your house, your sink grinders, your kitchen grinders. That puts a lot of excess organic waste into it. So a system that had that would probably have more pump outs required from it. And the average electrical cost really depends on the system. I would say it's probably running around $120 a year in your cost. So it's not a big power draw on here. So this is where I come in. Okay, I provide service to the homeowners for no charge. I educate you about the process. Okay, I assist you with the grant applications, tell you what to expect. I can help you select an engineer to getting an installer on there. Usually I typically get like 3 prices from an installer, unless you have somebody that you like to work with, and then I get a quote from that person. but I can help look over these things so you're not on your own doing that. And that's what I got so far, so I'll answer your questions, yes.
Hold on one sec. So what we're gonna ask is, so everybody can hear, John, where'd you go? No, that's all right, we can pass the mic around.
Yeah.
So if we can bring the mics to people,
Okay.
you're just gonna use yours. We have others.
And I have a sign-up sheet in the back there that you can put your name down, like I said, and I can personally help you and talk specifically about your particular property. So usually what I do is I give you a lot of information all at once, because that's going to spur on questions, and that's what I really want. One thing I do want to say is, this is your property, so you don't have somebody come in and just do something at your property. You need to be educated, like, what's going to happen to my property? So, like, for example, I only recommend engineers that actually come to your house to do a design so they can see your property. There are people out there that would do a sketch but hey, here's your design. Meanwhile, the contractor comes up and there's a big maple tree right where the system's supposed to go, and they're ready to cut that tree down. So it's like, no. If there's a specimen tree or something you want to preserve, hey, where are the locations I could put this that could make a better location? So that's up to you, and I can help kind of guide, those things, and it would help you.
I wanted to say, the people next door to me put in a septic system. They put in this new septic system. It hums all the time, doesn't stop. And the people next door to them did the same thing, and it hums at my brother-in-law's house also, their system. I have put in a system which went under the driveway, and mine doesn't hum at all. It doesn't make any noises at all. So I think that's something that people would want to be careful of, to be listening all day and night to a humming.
Sure, and I don't know which system they have installed, because I've heard that from some homeowners, and I've had other homeowners, and I've had systems that I've actually gone to and went out with a sound meter. The hum won't come from the tank. The hum is coming from the blower. And I would see if the vendor can come out there, because they don't want a bad reputation on their system, that they come out there, maybe it wasn't set right. It's humming, it's vibrating. That's usually where the blower is. But if it's installed right, it's just like odors. You shouldn't have odors from your system if it's working properly. If you're having odors, something's not right, on the system. So that's where the selection, even though I don't think the sound level is loud on those systems, but everybody has a different tolerance of that. So that's where the location of the blower comes in. So I wouldn't put the blower by a bedroom window. If it can be tucked in, in the corner of the yard, and that satisfies everybody, why don't we do that? Well, yes, it shouldn't be that loud. It really shouldn't
I
be.
walk every night, that's what I hear. Every night, I hear the humming. It doesn't bother me when I'm in my house, because it faces the other
Sure.
direction. But every night when I'm walking, I hear the humming. So if my house was right next door, it would be humming in my bedroom window.
Yeah.
My house is quiet,
Yeah.
I can hear it in the kitchen on the other side of my house from the unit,
Wow.
in the house, with the door shut in the shop.
Yeah.
So we're gonna ask everybody
Next
one
question,
question, and we'll go back
Next
and forth.
question here.
Hi. If I upgrade my septic now, can an extension to the house be added later?
Yes. The systems are sized. The minimum system you have to put in has to be able to treat 400 gallons a day. That's good for up to a 3-bedroom system. Once you go to 4 bedrooms, then it's 110 gallons per day per bedroom. So one of the things I discussed with homeowners, and the engineer should ask you, do you plan on doing any extension in the future? Because then you can upsize your system. So for instance, I have a house in South Maynooth in Georgia Capon, and he's got a 4-bedroom, but he sized his for a 6-bedroom. So you can do that.
Thank you.
Yes.
you don't charge for this service.
Nope.
Why is that, and how did you come to do this? And I see you're part of Stony Brook,
Yes.
so is it education for you, or what is it?
Well, no, it's a job for me. Just to give you my background, I've been in wastewater treatment, cleaning water for 40 years. I'm a certified operator, worked for very large operation firms where we operate very large treatment plants. And when this job came up, I said, well, this would be a great retirement job. I think, and at first, I didn't believe that these systems worked. I'm an operator. I operated, hundreds of millions of gallons a day of water, and I didn't think these worked. And when I saw the data, I said, yeah, they do work. 10 years ago, this wouldn't have been, we wouldn't even be having these discussions. It just wasn't practical. There wasn't a solution for Suffolk County. Suffolk County is not going to add sewers. They're going to add sewers in certain places. But if you want to see what cost would be to install a wastewater treatment plant to sewer all of Suffolk County, and more importantly, the traffic, if you think traffic's bad now in the summer, if you had big sewer projects going on, it would be unbearable. So this is the solution that the county came up with, and they're putting money behind it, and now they have enough money from, we all voted, right? We voted for the referendum for the 8% sales tax. That's what's funding this. So getting to your particular specific question, my position, I've been with the center for 3 years. My position was funded through a grant through the Peconic Land Trust. It's expiring. I'm trying to get it renewed with them. We're always looking for, how do we fund the outreach efforts? Because most of the grants that are available are for installing systems, designing systems. There's very little on the outreach efforts. And we think doing outreach like we do, where we're actually helping the homeowners submit the grant, navigate the process, is the way to go. And so the grant was specifically to help homeowners in Georgia Pond and Sagaponack Pond. But as I started doing outreach, I'd have other people call me up and say, can you help me? I was like, well, they're not in the watershed that I was kind of hired for, but yeah, I'll help you. And I started expanding it. Mecox Bay started the Mecox Bay Conservancy. We got a grant through them to help people. But if somebody wants help, I'm not going to refuse help. We think there's a need. If 3 years ago, I had a lot of people to sign up, there would be a lot of frustration because there's a lot of backlog and there's a lot of lag of, how things get approved. Now they're speeding things up. There still has a way to go, but now we think that we're going to be able to keep up with that demand. Yep.
What is the time frame on this?
Well, it depends on your system. Right now, the county ranks your system. So they give preference to failed systems. So if you have a catastrophic failure, like a collapse, you run to the jump of the first of the line. If you have a non-catastrophic failure, which means you get it pumped 2 or more times a year, or it's one of those block constructions, they call that non-catastrophic, and they give you an extra, that might take, maybe 6 months for review.
I heard 2 years this
All other homeowners have been waiting for a long time. But I know the county is working on it. They just hired 4 more people. They made all the contracts now electronic signatures, so it passes around to everyone electronically. It used to be paper. And remember a while back, there was the data breach on the county. That affected how everything worked. So it slowed everything down, but now it's working. Yep.
I just want to add to what Tom's saying. What we've been telling people is it costs you nothing, and you're not committed to doing anything to apply for the grants. Because as you know, some of them take a very long time to get approved.
And that one is the only one that won't
The county.
reimburse. So
Yeah.
that one's almost a moot point for a lot of us out here who don't have a catastrophic system. We're
Right.
not getting that grant.
Except if your house is built before 1973, it's very likely you've got cement block or brick. and you are at risk for collapse. So you never want to be in, in an emergency where you have the catastrophic failure and you've got to deal with it right away. So what we're encouraging everyone to do with Tom's assistance, apply. He will help you get the grants in, and then when the grant comes back and you'll know what your system approximately is going to cost by working with him, then you'll see if and how you want to move forward. But by just applying, you're not committing to anything.
Isn't that gonna slow it up for people that really wanna put the system in?
You just can't get the county one, you just go ahead and do it and
All
you get
three.
reimbursed by the state and the town.
There's so much money available, and for example, I did a little study for Southampton Village, only 1% have actually moved ahead of, it's crazy. The money's there and it's available, so please apply.
Yeah, and a lot of times you can get your upgrade done with just the state grant and the town grant. So, there's options.
Okay, my question is, my house was built in 1950. I got 2 house traps, so I don't know that go outside, so I might have 2 systems. Because, the house was renovated, so there might be additional plumbing involved with this. Is that covered?
No, well, you need a plumber, it's covered.
Internal plumbing is not covered.
Excuse
But
me?
internal plumbing is
No,
not
it's not
covered.
internal.
But
It's gonna be outside.
external plumbing, if you can, a lot of people have 2 small systems, or they had an old dry well, or if you're in 1950, you most likely have a block construction.
One of them is block construction.
Yes.
The newer one, he added a bathroom, and I don't know what that is, but they're gonna have to be combined and everything, so it'd be outdoor plumbing then.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, so they can take 2 sources.
And one quick question, is there a life expectancy on these systems, like they're good for 20 years or 15?
They're good for 30 years at least. There's not much that goes wrong with them. If you look, there's not a lot of moving parts. This is all biology that's happening. And you have a blower. The blower's not that expensive. And they last, they're very reliable on there.
When you say not that expensive, what, parts are all of a sudden, it's like $800,
No, it's way less than that. It's like $300 for, replace a blower. But you wouldn't have to replace it, for years.
All right, thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
My question has to do with the financing. I remember the early efforts to have people convert to the newer systems that you referenced earlier. And there was some issue about that money then being reported on individual tax returns. I think that all blew over. So my question is, if a homeowner was to undertake this project and had a larger tank and so forth, so that it might go above the average $36,000 cost that you cited before, what would be the implications for their personal responsibility in reporting any of that as income and possibly influencing their tax reports?
Upgrading your septic system has no effect on your taxes. There's no impact. That was resolved.
So it's not reported as
Nope.
a gift to the individual?
No, it's not reported as a gift at all.
Okay. The second thing I'd like to mention, if I might, is that in my little community, we had 300 foot or so of bulkhead. And the bulkhead was destroyed and we had to rebuild it. But as a cooperative effort with Cornell Extension, behind our bulkhead, we put in the wood chips to help filter the water that would flow out from the properties there into Shinnecock Bay. And as a result of monitoring that, they have found an actual decrease in the nitrogen. So from my perspective, one, of course, is the cost and the practicality of it for homeowners. But the other is to improve the water in our area. Hampton Bays has more water surrounding it than any other Hamptons. And when the algae come in, we're impacted by it all. So on principle, I support it, and I'm going to investigate it, even though I had a septic system put in about 7 years ago, the old-fashioned kind. Thank you.
Okay, just want to mention the reference that you made about the bulkhead. That's a system that we installed. It's called the permeable reactive barrier. So septic systems address the source of the nitrogen. I mentioned that, you know, oh, you have 80, 100 parts per million of nitrogen going out into the ground, which eventually gets to your water. The permeable barriers is try to get legacy nitrogen that's already in the ground. But your concentrations coming to that might be 5, you know, might be 6, you know, on there. And yes, it does a very good job at removing that. We're doing other studies with different types of wells, injection wells in different areas. So it's a multi-pronged approach of how we clean up our water quality. We have legacy issues, but really getting to the source is the most bang for the buck that we can really do. So, yes.
Hold on, I'm sorry. Oh,
Oh,
Okay.
can you?
it's on.
Hi, I just wanted to put in a plug for it. I had this done last year. I can't say that the process went smoothly. Some of the paperwork was kind of wild and difficult, but I think they've worked on that a lot. It's functioned beautifully. I have absolutely no issues with it. You don't hear it. We had a Fuji system put in. I'll put in a plug for Fuji. And I will say that you can play with sizing the system. I mean, do you want to have your property with a great big house on it or not? I don't think you should have to worry about what somebody else might do with your property. But just generally, so my house is 100 years old, and we had, speaking to Ray's issue, we had 3 different tanks on our property from different iterations over the years. Nothing was really collapsing, but when they have to check for the water depth, it was 14 feet down to water. The bottom of our cesspool was sitting in the water table. There's no question about it. I'm 800 feet from the bay. So it's a really good thing to do. The biggest thing you're going to find that they don't quite mention here is when they put those tanks in under your property, you're going to end up with places where all you can have is grass and trees and bushes. You can't have trees within like 10 feet of your tanks. If you have like a driveway, ask to have tanks put under it. It only costs a little bit, and it'll be completely covered by the cost, and then you save disturbing some of your property. But we really, all of us, need to get on board and do this. It won't really be for our lifetime. They say it's going to be 20 years if everybody did it today before it clears out. But we're setting things up for a better future.
You're hired.
Just come with the microphone with you. We have up here. So just to give you some numbers, in Suffolk County, there are 360,000 on-site septic systems. Through 2025, the IA program, we have 7,500 installations. So we have a long way to go. But the difference is now that there's funding for it, and it never was to a point where you can have everything covered. And now that everything can be covered, it's a big difference.
The wood chipping feature, is that part of the upgrade, or is that in addition to your septic upgrade?
No, that would be an addition to it.
So you can't do that as a standalone?
Wood chips alone won't do the nitrogen removal.
Okay.
Although I do have a new system that we're testing out that incorporates wood chips in the design, but it's not approved yet.
Okay.
So,
All right.
more to come on
Thank you.
that.
I just wanted to know, what happens to the old cesspools? Do they fill them in, or are we responsible for that?
Part of your install, the installers has to abandon your system. There's 2 ways to do it. They can fill it in. But if you have a tight property, most likely it's going where it exists.